This week, the universe offers us lessons around desire and releasing those desires and using those desires for our spiritual growth. This is divine timing for the week of February 14th to February 20th as we enter the 30th gene key, whose shadow is desire, gift is lightness, and city is rapture. Every shadow of all the 64 shadows are rooted in an unfulfilled desire that we are trying to fix. And there is no overcoming desire. There is no putting it in a box and forgetting about it. What happens with desire is that as soon as one is satiated, another one pops up. And when we can recognize that game, then the world starts to open to us. An ache for something we lack is what desire is. And oftentimes that ache comes up unexpectedly. Everything seems to be going fine. You're on this totally different course, and all of a sudden this thing that shows up seemingly to take you in a totally different direction. And we don't understand why. And the dilemma here is temptation. And the more resistance we have to our desires, the more power that we give them. So what is right? Do I follow the desire or do I stay on the path? And we'll see as we get to the higher frequencies of this key. We have to trust our desires because they're from source, they're from God. But what we don't need to do is act on those desires. Our mind likes to blow our desire out of proportion. We like to think or tell ourselves a story that if this isn't met, my world is going to fall apart. But in reality, desires are not needs. And desires are tied to half-heartedness in a big way, the 29th shadow as its programming partner. So we have this desire, and if we are half-hearted in one of our commitments, then we end up in a world of trouble on the astral plane. In reality, desire is just genetic hunger, and it's designed to help us make mistakes so that we can evolve. So there's nothing wrong with pure desire. We are programmed through our genetics to learn through experiences. We can't get closer to the light without the darkness. And so we need to experience both sides. And we, as individual humans, are expendable to universal consciousness. Gaia, an organism in and of itself, must keep testing every possibility in order to continue to evolve. Remember, this universe is holographic, and Gaia too, all of Earth and all of the beings and creatures and rocks on it have their own genetic imperative. Buddhists teach us that desire is suffering, but I don't think that's quite right. It's our reaction to that desire that leads to suffering. This was known as the clinging fire in the I Ching. And one of the reasons I think it's called that is as we satiate a desire, another one just pops right back up and hangs on to us. So in that way, it is this clinging fire that forces us into the throes of evolution. Moving now to the gift of lightness. So this clinging fire, when we learn to use this frequency, can engulf our lower bodies and burn them brighter and allow us to come up into our higher bodies. Desire is here to purify us by our choosing the higher choice. Lightness is the quality that is needed to transcend desire. We need to see the game. We need to take a breath. Desires are fuel that can be refined by our awareness. And lightness here is not making light of life. Instead, it's letting go of one very heavy burden, and that is the burden of control. Whatever you do from this gift, you'll have a glint in your eye because you know that all of this is just a game. All of those desires are put in your path to help you to choose light, to choose love. But you can't pretend that your desires don't matter. You can't ignore them. You need to realize instead that desire is a sham. You need to honor them and see them for what they are. See them as tools to help us develop our freedom muscle, to help us choose whether we want to act or not act. Because desire, being satiated, never brings lasting peace. And when we recognize that, we start to understand the illusion that we live in. Lightness is humor. But it's not humor by laughing at something or someone else. It's humor and laughing at yourself and understanding the predicament that you're in. This 30th is in the ring of purification, along with the 13th. And it begins with realizing every desire is a variation of craving to end suffering. And the 13th gift here is discernment. It's understanding how to choose. And at the shadow, it's discord. It's seeing only those desires and not recognizing that there's something greater beneath them. Gradually, desire releases on its own when it's time. Remember or think wanting desire to end, that's a desire in and of itself. So we're kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place here. But as you follow the desire for unity, as you follow the desire to end your suffering, the fire of your longing becomes bright. And that's the other meaning here of lightness. It is the light that is filling your lower bodies and filling your subtle bodies as you are purified. On to the 30th city is Rapture. All desires are purified to the desire to return to source, the desire for God. We are possessed by longing, by love for God, for unity, and that desire burns us clean. It burns us free of all of these others' desires. Because you let desires go, they bring your frequency higher and higher. We aren't adding things to raise our vibration. We're letting things go. We're letting go of that conditioning that keeps us here on this plane. Devotion is the programming partner to Rapture. It's the 29th city. And devotion is the only desire being left. It's the desire to merge, the desire to be devoted to something or someone. And when that happens, when the merging occurs, that is when we find rapture. It is a divine ecstatic state. In the audio, Richard Rudd mentions Ramakrishna, who's a spiritual teacher. And every time somebody said the word Krishna, he would snap into this divine rapture and could be gone for hours. And that rapture is our reward for burning brighter. It allows us to move from the astral plane to the Buddhic plane, from the emotional plane of our personal desire to the Buddhic plane of unity, of connection. The 30th city generates bhakti, or life force, our drive to get higher and higher in frequency. It is a devotion to union. And as that union approaches, Shakti is released, the involutionary force, the divine force reaching down to meet us. And that is how we recognize our potential. That is how we fall into rapture, by letting our desires burn so bright they purify our body. And we're able to choose only one thing, only love.